Marcus Cole had never believed in God, but standing in the entrance of the alien chamber, watching light dance through walls made of living crystal, he thought that maybe he should start. The ship was bigger than any city on Earth. It hung above the Pacific Ocean like a second moon, blocking out the sun for 3 days straight. When it arrived, every government on the planet stopped fighting. Every war paused. Every human being looked up at the sky and understood, for the first time in history, that they were not alone. They were also not in charge. The aliens had sent one message to Earth. It was simple and clear. Send one person to speak for your kind. We will listen. The United Nations had argued for 6 hours about who to send. Some wanted a soldier. Others wanted a scientist. In the end, they chose Marcus because he had spent 30 years talking to people who wanted to kill each other. He was good at finding common ground. He was good at staying calm when everything was falling apart. He did not feel calm now. The crystal walls hummed with a soft sound, almost like breathing. Marcus walked forward on a path made of something that looked like frozen starlight. On both sides of him, aliens stood in perfect rows. He counted 11 different species. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. One creature seemed to be made entirely of smoke that held a shape through will alone. They all watched him. They all waited. Marcus had read about the history of colonization on Earth. He knew what happened when a more advanced civilization met a less advanced one. The less advanced one did not survive. He wondered if humanity was about to become a footnote in someone else's history book. At the end of the long chamber, there was a throne. It was not made of gold or jewels or any material Marcus could recognize. It seemed to be carved from darkness itself, a shape that hurt to look at directly. And sitting on that throne was the most beautiful and terrifying being Marcus had ever seen. She stood as he approached, 12 feet tall. Her skin was black like polished stone, but golden light ran through it like veins of fire. Her eyes were not eyes at all. They were windows into space itself. Marcus could see stars spinning inside them, galaxies being born and dying in the time it took him to blink. The translator device in his ear crackled. 100 alien languages fell silent at once. The chamber became so quiet that Marcus could hear his own heart beating. The tall being stepped down from her throne. Each step she took made the crystal floor sing a different note. She moved like water flowing downhill, smooth and unstoppable. She crossed the distance between them in moments that felt like hours. Then she stopped. She looked down at Marcus with those impossible eyes. He felt like an ant standing before a giant. He felt like a child who had wandered into a room full of adults. He waited for her to speak. He waited for her to demand. He waited for the end. Instead, she bowed. Not a small bow, not a nod of greeting. She bent her entire body, lowering that crowned head until it nearly touched the floor at his feet. The golden light in her veins pulsed faster. Her galaxies spun with what looked almost like emotion. Behind Marcus, he heard sounds of shock, gasps, whispers in languages he could not understand. One of the smoke beings flickered violently, as if it might come apart entirely. The tall being rose slowly. When she spoke, her voice filled the chamber like music. "Finally," she said, "the architects have returned to us." Marcus stood frozen. His mouth was dry. His hands were shaking. He tried to remember his training, all those years of learning to stay calm in impossible situations. None of it helped. "I think there has been a mistake," he managed to say. "I am only human." The being smiled. It was not a human smile, but Marcus recognized it anyway. There was joy in it. There was relief. And underneath both of those things, there was something that looked almost like fear. "Yes," she whispered. "That is precisely why I bow." Marcus shook his head. "I do not understand. We are nothing. We have barely left our own moon. We fight among ourselves like children. We cannot do what you can do. Not yet, the being said. But you will. She turned to face the assembled aliens. Her voice rang out like a bell. I am Valeth Korra, Empress of the Sindari, supreme ruler of the hegemony of the 12 stars. I have conquered 1,000 worlds. I have ended wars with a single word. I have watched civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore. She paused. The silence was absolute. And I tell you now, all of you, that this small creature from that small world is more important than everything we have ever built. More important than our ships. More important than our empires. More important than our lives. The aliens began to react. Some bowed as well. Others stepped back in fear. A few made sounds that the translator could not turn into words. Valeth Korra turned back to Marcus. She reached out one long, elegant hand and touched his face. Her fingers were warm, almost hot. The golden light in her veins pulsed against his skin. You do not know what you are, she said softly. You do not know what you will become. But I have waited 12 million years for this moment. My people have searched every star in the sky. We have studied every world. We have followed every trail. She leaned closer. Her galaxy eyes filled his vision. And every trail led to you. To humanity. Marcus felt something break inside him. Every belief he had ever held about humanity's place in the universe shattered like glass. What are we? He asked. Valeth Korra smiled again, and this time there were tears in those impossible eyes. Real tears, falling like diamonds. You are the children of the gods, she said. You are the heirs to everything. And you are finally home. She bowed again. And this time, every alien in the chamber bowed with her. Marcus Cole stood alone in a sea of bent heads and lowered crowns. He was only human. He did not understand what was happening. He did not know why they bowed, but as he looked out at these ancient, powerful beings kneeling before him, he felt something new growing in his chest. It was not pride. It was not fear. That it was the beginning of a question that would change everything. What had humanity been meant to become? The Empress gave Marcus his own room on the ship. It was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls changed color based on his mood. The bed shaped itself to fit his body perfectly. Food appeared whenever he was hungry, exactly what he wanted, even if he did not say it out loud that he hated it. He hated not understanding. He hated being treated like something he was not. On the third day, Valeth Korra came to see him. She had to bend to fit through the door. In this smaller space, she seemed even larger than before. Her presence filled the room like a physical weight. Marcus had to remind himself to breathe. You have questions, she said. It was not a question itself. I have nothing but questions. She sat on the floor, folding her long legs beneath her. This brought her face closer to his level. It was a kind gesture, Marcus realized. She was trying not to intimidate him. Ask, she said. I will answer what I can. Marcus had prepared 100 questions. Now, facing her, only one seemed to matter. Why do you bow to me? I am nothing special. I am just a man who talks to people for a living. I am not a king. I am not a scientist. I am not even particularly smart. Valeth Korra smiled. You are human. That is enough. But what does that mean? She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than before. 12 million years ago, there was a species that we call the progenitors. They were the first. The oldest. They had mastered sciences that we still cannot understand. They could shape stars. They could bend time. They could create life itself from nothing. She waved her hand, and the air between them filled with light. Images appeared. A galaxy spinning slowly. Worlds being born. The progenitors looked at the universe and saw that it was empty. So they filled it. They traveled to young planets. They took simple creatures and changed them, lifted them up, gave them minds that could think and hands that could build. The images showed alien species appearing one by one. Marcus recognized some of them from the chamber. Every species in the hegemony exists because the progenitors made us, Valithcora continued. The Sindari, the Cathvari, the Luminari, all of us. We are their children. And humans? Humans are their last children, their final creation. Left on a small world at the edge of the galaxy. Left alone to grow without help. Without guidance, Marcus frowned. Why? Why would they leave us alone when they helped everyone else? Valithcora's expression changed. Something moved behind those galaxy eyes. It might have been old pain, because you were different. Special. The progenitors created each species for a purpose. The Sindari were made to govern. We are patient. We think in centuries. We can hold empires together through will alone. The Cathvari were made for war. They are strong and fast and fearless. The Luminari were made for art. They see beauty in everything. She paused. But humans were not made for one thing. You were made for everything. Marcus shook his head. I do not understand. Your bodies are weak. Your lives are short. You have no natural weapons. You cannot see in the dark, or breathe underwater, or survive in the cold of space. Valithcora leaned forward. And yet you are the most dangerous species ever created. Dangerous? We cannot even stop fighting each other. Exactly. Her eyes blazed brighter. You fight. You struggle. You fail. And then you adapt. You change. You find a new way. No other species does this. We are what the progenitors made us to be. We cannot become anything else. But humans can become anything. She stood suddenly, and the images in the air changed. Now they showed Earth. Tiny humans hunting with spears. Building fires. Sailing across oceans. Flying through clouds. In 10,000 years, you went from caves to the moon. Do you understand how impossible that is? The Sindari took 2 million years to achieve the same thing. The Cathvari took 3 million. And they had help. They had guidance. You did it alone. Marcus watched the images of human history flash past. Wars and art. Tragedy and triumph. Everything his species had ever done, compressed into moments of light. The progenitors left you alone because they wanted to see what you would become without limits, Valithcora said. They made the rest of us to serve specific functions. But you they made free. Truly free. Free to imagine anything. Free to become anything. What happened to the progenitors? Marcus asked. Where did they go? The Empress was quiet for a long time. We do not know. 12 million years ago, they simply disappeared. They left behind technology we cannot copy. Buildings we cannot enter. Promises we do not understand. Her voice became heavier. They left behind only one message. One day, we will return. And for 12 million years, we have waited. We have searched. We have studied every world, every species, every trace they left behind. She looked at Marcus, and he saw the weight of those years in her eyes. Every trace led to Earth. Every clue pointed to humanity. Your DNA carries markers that match progenitor samples. Your brain structure mirrors their designs. You are not just their children. You are them, reborn, remade, given a chance to grow again from the beginning. Marcus felt dizzy. The room seemed to spin around him. This is too much. We are not gods. We are not ancient builders. We are just people. We make mistakes. We hurt each other. We destroy things. Yes, Valithkora agreed. You do all of those things. And that is why the galaxy fears you. She moved toward the door, then stopped. The hegemony has debated what to do about Earth for centuries. Some wanted to destroy you before you could grow stronger. Others wanted to worship you and wait. I chose to come here myself because I needed to see you, to understand. And what do you understand now? Valithkora smiled, but there was sadness in it. I understand that you do not yet know what you are. I understand that when you find out, everything will change. She left without another word. Marcus sat alone in his impossible room, surrounded by walls that read his thoughts and furniture that anticipated his needs. He was the heir to a galactic legacy. He was the descendant of gods. He was only human dot, and for the first time, he began to wonder if that was enough. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry wood. Marcus learned later that the hegemony had thousands of communication networks. Information that took years to travel by ship could reach every corner of their space in hours. And the information about humanity reached everywhere. The children of the progenitors have been found. The architects have returned. The humans are coming. Not everyone was happy about it. Admiral Kethver of the Kethvari was 7 feet of muscle and rage. His species had been created for war, and they had spent 12 million years perfecting it. They had conquered worlds for the hegemony. They had crushed rebellions. They had made the galaxy safe for those weaker than themselves, and now they were supposed to bow to soft, fragile creatures who had not even left their own solar system. He gathered his supporters in secret. Other Kethvari who shared his anger. Members of other species who feared what humanity might become. They called themselves the Purifiers. Their goal was simple: destroy Earth before it was too late. Marcus was in a meeting with Valithkora when the first attack came. Warning lights filled the air. Alarms screamed in a dozen languages. The Empress's face went pale, the golden light in her veins flickering with what Marcus now recognized as fear. Kethver has moved against us, she said. He has taken half the war fleet. He is heading for your world. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. How long? 3 days. Perhaps less. 3 days. Earth had no defenses that could stop an alien fleet. Humanity had nuclear weapons and chemical rockets, and soldiers trained to fight other humans. None of it would matter against ships that could travel between stars. Can you stop him? Marcus asked. Valithkora closed her eyes. My forces are spread across the hegemony. By the time I gather them, it will be too late. Then we are dead, perhaps. She opened her eyes. Or perhaps you will surprise us again. Marcus returned to Earth on the fastest ship the Empress could provide. He arrived to find chaos. Governments were panicking. People were rioting in the streets. The sky was full of the Empress's loyal ships, but everyone knew they were not enough. He gathered the leaders of every nation in a room in Geneva. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists, the most powerful people on Earth, and all of them looked lost. We have 3 days, Marcus told them. 3 days to find a way to survive. There is no way, one general said. We have seen their weapons. One ship could destroy a continent. Kethver brings 500 ships. Then we will find a way to stop 500 ships. With what? Harsh language? Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The room went quiet. I have spent 3 weeks among beings who have ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Do you know what they are afraid of? U.S. They bow to us. They call us the children of gods. Not because of our weapons or our technology. Because of our minds. He looked at each face in the room. The progenitors made every other species for one purpose. The Kethvari can only fight. The Sundari can only rule. They cannot change. They cannot adapt. But we can. We have always been able to. That is our weapon. That is our power. A scientist raised her hand, Dr. Elena Vasquez. She specialized in neural interfaces, technology that connected human brains to computers. I may have an idea, she said. It is dangerous. It might not work. And even if it does, there will be a cost. Tell us. She stood and walked to a screen on the wall. Images appeared. Human brains. Computer networks. Strange patterns of light. The alien ships run on networked intelligence. Thousands of programs working together. But they are rigid, predictable. They follow rules that were written millions of years ago. She brought up new images. Human brain scans. Human minds are different. We do not follow rules. We make new ones. We see connections that do not exist. We imagine things that cannot be. What are you suggesting? Elena took a deep breath. We upload human minds into the defense network. Not as programs, as living intelligences. They would be able to think faster than any computer. See patterns no program could find. Control our weapons with a speed and creativity that the Kethvari cannot match. The room exploded with voices. Some supported the idea. Others called it insanity. One religious leader called it an abomination against God. Marcus raised his hand for silence. What is the cost you mentioned? Elena's face was pale. The process would change them. The uploaded minds would become something new. Something between human and machine. They might never be fully human again. And you want volunteers for this? Yes. Marcus closed his eyes. He thought about what Vailith Korra had said. Humanity was made for everything. Made to adapt. Made to become whatever was needed. This was what was needed. As for volunteers, he said, tell them the truth. Tell them everything. And pray that enough of them say yes. 100 people volunteered. Scientists and soldiers. Teachers and artists. Old and young. Men and women. They came from every nation, every background, every walk of life. They all knew they might never come back. Marcus stood in the upload facility as they prepared. 100 beds. 100 neural caps. 100 human beings about to give up everything they were. Thank you, he said to them. I do not have words for what you are doing. A young woman smiled at him. She could not have been more than 20 years old. You told us we were made to adapt, she said. So we are adapting. The upload began. When Kethver's fleet arrived at Earth, they expected easy prey. Primitive defenses. Panicking soldiers. A species waiting to die. Instead, they found something new. Something impossible. The human defense network came alive with 100 minds working as one. They saw the Kethvari attack patterns before they formed. They moved Earth's weapons with impossible precision. They turned the enemy's own tactics against them. The battle lasted 17 hours. 500 Kethvari ships arrived. 43 escaped. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kethver watched his fleet die. He had fought 1,000 battles. He had never lost. Now he understood why the galaxy feared humanity. They did not follow rules. They made new ones, and they would never, ever give up. The galaxy watched the Battle of Sol through 1,000 different screens. News traveled from world to world. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly knew its name. The Kethvari, the greatest warriors in the hegemony, had been broken by creatures who had never fought a war in space before. Admiral Kethver was captured trying to escape. He was brought before the Empress in chains, his proud head bent low. Vailith Korra sentenced him to exile on a dead world, alone with his failure for the rest of his long life. But the real question was not what to do with Kethver. The real question was what to do with humanity. 1 month after the battle, Marcus received a summons. The Grand Council of the Hegemony wanted to meet with him. Every species would send representatives. Every voice would be heard, and humanity would have to make a choice. Marcus traveled to the council chamber on a world called Nexus Prime. It was an artificial planet, built by the progenitors millions of years ago. The whole world was a single city, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. The council chamber itself was the size of a small country. Seats rose in circles around a central platform, thousands and thousands of them, filled with representatives of the 12 stars. Marcus stood on the platform alone, a single human in a sea of alien faces. Velethkura spoke first. "The hegemony has debated the human question for centuries," she said. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast room. "Some said we should destroy them. Some said we should study them. Some said we should wait and see what they became." She paused. "Now we have seen. In the Battle of Sol, 100 humans defeated 500 Kethvari warships. They did what no species in 12 million years has ever done. They adapted in real time. They created new strategies in the middle of combat. They turned our own weapons against us." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus saw fear on some faces, wonder on others. "The humans have proven themselves worthy of their inheritance," Velethkura continued. "They are the children of the progenitors. They are the heirs to everything the architects built. And so the hegemony makes this offer." She turned to face Marcus directly. "Join us, not as members, not as allies, as leaders. Take your rightful place as the successors to those who made us all. Guide us as they once did. Rule as they once ruled." The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on Marcus. He thought about everything he had learned. The progenitors had created all these species. They had built an empire that spanned the galaxy. They had been gods in everything but name, and now that power was being offered to humanity. All they had to do was take it. Marcus looked out at the assembled beings. Some were ancient, older than human civilization itself. Some had mastered sciences that Earth could not even imagine. All of them were offering the bow. It was everything humanity had ever dreamed of: power, purpose, a place among the stars. And Marcus said no. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. "No?" Velethkura's voice was careful, controlled. "You refuse?" "I refuse. May I ask why?" Marcus took a deep breath. He had thought about this moment for weeks. He had practiced what he would say 100 times. Now, standing here, the words came easily. 100 years ago, my species was fighting a world war. We killed 60 million of each other because we could not agree on borders and beliefs. 50 years ago, we were pointing nuclear weapons at each other, ready to destroy our own world. 20 years ago, we were still arguing about whether all humans deserved basic rights. He shook his head. "We are not ready to lead the galaxy. We have not even figured out how to lead ourselves." A Kethvari representative stood. "You defeated our greatest warrior. You broke the finest fleet in the hegemony. And you say you are not ready? We won one battle. That does not make us wise. That does not make us good. It only makes us dangerous." Marcus stepped forward. His voice grew stronger. "The progenitors made you all for specific purposes. You were designed to be what you are. But they made humanity different. They made us free. Free to become anything." He looked at Velethkura. "You said that is why the galaxy fears us. Because we can change. Because we have no limits. But that freedom is also a responsibility. If we are truly free, then we must choose what we become, not accept what we are given." "And what do you choose?" The Empress asked. "I choose to wait. I choose to grow. I choose to let humanity make its own mistakes and learn from them. We need time to become worthy of what you see in us. Not because we inherited it from the progenitors, but because we earned it ourselves. The council erupted into noise. Some representatives shouted in anger. Others argued with their neighbors. A few sat in stunned silence. Vilith Cora raised her hand. Slowly, the chamber quieted. "You asked for time," she said. "How much time?" "As much as we need. A century. 1,000 years. However long it takes for us to look at ourselves and see leaders instead of children. And if we refuse? If we demand you take power now." Marcus met her eyes. Those galaxy eyes that held stars and secrets. "Then you will prove that you do not truly believe we are the progenitors' children. Because the one thing I have learned about the progenitors is that they never forced anyone to do anything. They offered. They guided. They helped. But they let every species choose its own path." He spread his hands. "I am asking for the same chance. Let us choose our own path." The silence stretched. Marcus felt every heartbeat like a drum in his chest. Then Vilith Cora smiled. It was the first real smile he had ever seen on her face. Not a ruler's smile. Not a goddess's smile. The smile of someone who had just witnessed something beautiful. "The progenitors created you to imagine the impossible," she said. "I believe you just did." She turned to the council. "The offer stands open. Humanity may claim their inheritance whenever they choose. Until then, they are friends of the hegemony, partners, equals in everything but name." She looked back at Marcus. "Take your time, child of the architects. Grow, learn, become, and when you are ready, we will be waiting." Marcus bowed. Not deeply. Not as a subject to a ruler. As one equal to another. "Thank you," he said, "for understanding." He walked out of the council chamber alone. Behind him, the galaxy continued to argue about what had just happened. Ahead of him, humanity's future waited to be written, not by gods, not by inheritance, by choice, and that, Marcus thought, was exactly as it should be. 100 years passed. Marcus Cole was 142 years old now. Medical technology from the hegemony had extended human life far beyond what anyone had thought possible. He moved slowly these days, his joints aching in the morning, his hair completely white. But his mind was still sharp. His eyes still saw clearly, and what he saw filled him with wonder. Earth was no longer a single fractured world. The nations had not disappeared, but they had learned to work together. The arguments continued, of course. Humans would always argue. But now they argued about how to build better ships, not how to destroy each other. The human concordat stretched across 17 star systems. Colonies on Mars and Europa. Settlements on worlds that had no names a century ago. Millions of humans living among the stars, building new lives in places their ancestors could not have imagined. They had not joined the hegemony as leaders. They had joined as partners, learning from aliens who had mastered space travel millions of years before, teaching those same aliens new ways to think. It was a fair trade. The 100 volunteers who had given up their humanity in the Battle of Sol had been recovered. It took decades. Scientists from a dozen species worked together to find a way to restore their minds without destroying what they had become. They called themselves the Bridge now. They were not quite human anymore, but they were not machines either. They existed in both worlds, understanding things that neither side could grasp alone. They served as translators between human and artificial intelligence. They proved that consciousness was stronger than anyone had believed. Marcus visited them sometimes. The young woman who had smiled at him before the upload was named Sarah. She was older now too, though she did not age the same way he did. Her eyes glowed faintly with inner light. Her voice had harmonics that no human throat could produce, but when she laughed, it was still Sarah's laugh. "We do not regret it," she told him once. "We gave up what we were so that others could live. Is that not the most human thing anyone can do?" Marcus had no answer. Perhaps there was none. On the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Seoul, Marcus received one last summons. The Empress Valith Korra wanted to see him. Not for politics, not for ceremony, just to talk. He traveled to her flagship, the same ship where they had first met. The crystal walls still pulsed with light. The paths still seemed to be made of frozen starlight. But Marcus walked them now without fear. He had earned his place here. Valith Korra waited for him in the same chamber where she had first bowed. She looked exactly as she had a century ago. Her species measured time in thousands of years. To her, a century was barely a moment, but something in her eyes had changed. "Ambassador Cole," she said, "it is good to see you again. I am not an ambassador anymore. I retired 20 years ago. Once an ambassador, always an ambassador." She smiled. "At least to me." They sat together in chairs that shaped themselves to fit their different bodies. Between them, a window looked out at the stars. "Your people surprise me still," Valith Korra said. "I offered you power, and you asked for time. I expected you to conquer the galaxy, and instead you chose to learn. The hegemony has changed more in the last 100 years than in the previous 10 million. And it is because of you, not because of me, because of all of us. Yes." She nodded slowly. "That is another thing about humans. You never take credit alone. You always share it." She was quiet for a moment. "I have watched the Kethvari learn to build as well as destroy. I have seen the Luminari create art that they could not have imagined before they met humans. I have witnessed my own people, the Sindari, question rules we have followed for ages." She looked at Marcus with those galaxy eyes. "You ask questions. Simple questions. Why do we do things this way? What are we afraid of? What could we become if we tried something new? Those are human questions. We ask them because we do not know the answers. And that is your power." Valith Korra leaned forward. "The progenitors created us to serve specific functions. They never expected us to grow beyond what we were made to be. But humans made us wonder if we could." She reached out her hand. It was a human gesture, something she had learned over the century of their friendship. "I bowed to you once because of what I believed you were. The children of gods. The heirs to power." Marcus took her hand. Her skin was warm, the golden veins pulsing gently. "I offer you my hand now because of what you chose to become. Not rulers, not conquerors, friends, teachers, partners. We are still only human," Marcus said. "We still make mistakes. We still argue. We still hurt each other sometimes." "Yes." Valith Korra squeezed his hand gently. "And that is the most extraordinary thing in the galaxy." She stood and walked to the window. Stars filled the view, countless worlds spinning in the darkness. 100 years ago, you told me that humanity was not ready to lead. Do you still believe that?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the colonies and the ships. The scientists working beside alien researchers. The children who grew up thinking of space as home. The bridged who had given up everything and found something new. "I believe we are closer," he said. "But I think we will never be finished. Humans do not become ready. We just keep becoming." Valith Korra nodded. "The progenitors disappeared 12 million years ago. We still do not know why. But I think I understand something now that I did not understand before." "What is that?" She turned to face him, and the stars framed her like a crown. Perhaps they did not disappear. Perhaps they simply finished what they were meant to do. They created the galaxy. They filled it with life. And then they stepped back and let that life grow. She smiled. Perhaps that is what gods do. They create, they guide, and then they let go. Marcus smiled back. His old bones ached. His time was running out, but he had seen things that no human before him had ever seen. He had changed things that could not be unchanged. And what do humans do? He asked. Valethkora laughed. It was a sound like music, like stars singing. Humans ask questions. Humans adapt. Humans refuse to accept that anything is impossible. She reached out and touched his face, just as she had a century ago. Humans become. Marcus Cole left the Empress's ship for the last time. He returned to Earth, to the small house he kept by the ocean. He sat on his porch and watched the sun set over water that looked the same as it had for millions of years dot in the sky above him. Stars were appearing. Worlds he could name now. Places where humans lived and worked and dreamed. He was only human. He had always been only human. And that, he finally understood, had always been enough. The galaxy was vast. The future was uncertain. Challenges waited that no one could predict, but humanity would face them. They would adapt. They would change. They would become whatever they needed to be, not because they were the children of gods, because they were human. And that was the most extraordinary thing in all the stars.